Hi guys, I'm Ariel with Arielpaints. Today's video is going to be all about the business of face painting. I'm going to go through a business checklist with you guys. I'm going to show you how I communicate with my clients from when they first request information from me for booking me for a gig. And then I'm also going to go through my contract. My contract also has pricing structure, so I'm going to go through the pricing structure and all the detail in my contract as well. This is something that you guys have been requesting from me for a long time, so I hope you're really excited about it. Now, before we get into the video, I first want to advise you that if you are starting a face painting business, that you should really contact a CPA and a lawyer in your area and region so that they can best advise you what is appropriate for you to do. Now, I say that because every country is different, every region is different, every state is different. There are different laws, and professionals will be able to guide you. So although I hope this video will help you and give you an idea of some of the things that I put in place when I started my business, I want you guys to make sure to know that this might not be right for you and you need to do your research. You can start doing research on the face painting forums online on Facebook, and then reach out to those professionals. Let them help you. Many of them will give you a complimentary first phone call where they don't charge you to tell you what you need to do to establish your business. So at least you know down the road what you need to do to become a professional face painter in your area. So highly recommend that you do some research. But if you're thinking about starting a face painting business, I hope this video will help you and give you an idea of how I organize my business and how I've made it a little bit easier for myself over the years. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into the video because we have a lot to cover. Okay, so we're going to start with a simple business checklist, things that you need to start considering when starting a business. So first thing, business name. I chose Arielpaints because I'm a fine artist. I do murals, I do custom pieces and abstracts, and I wanted something all-encompassing that didn't say face paint. So Arielpaints, it works for me. Now, another thing to think about are business cards, marketing. At first, you might just want to print something off from your printer or do a simple flyer and then eventually get business cards when you're more established, but think about marketing. Another aspect of marketing is social media. Are you going to start a Facebook page, Instagram? Are you going to start a website? I recommend starting with a Facebook page or Instagram page because they're free accounts and a good way to start out. And some people think you need a website. I don't personally think that, but that's up to you. Regardless, I would do a website later when I'm more established before investing that much money and time into something that it might not be necessary for you. The next thing to consider is a contract. A contract is simply an agreement between you and another party. So how are you going to do that? It could be a Word document, it could be an email, but what is your contract and agreement going to look like with your clients? Depending on how you structure your business, you may need a tax ID number. You may not if you're an LLC, it all depends. Now, if you want to work with corporate clients, having a W-9 ready and prepared is very helpful because they need it to pay you. So those are two things you want to consider. Another thing to consider is a bank account. PayPal, invoices. How are you going to keep track of what's coming into your business and what's going out of your business? And how are you going to invoice clients? I like using PayPal, but there are many other ways you can do this. You also want to think about insurance, licenses, certifications. What do you need to establish a business in your area to make you a professional licensed face painter? This can be different in different regions, which is why I highly recommend contacting a CPA and a lawyer, not only for the insurance and licenses, but for that tax ID number, W-9, and how you're going to establish your business. My face painting company is set up as an LLC, which the simplest explanation for that is that my business entity is separated legally from my personal debt and responsibility. So although this works well for me, again, I recommend that you contact a CPA or lawyer and find out what the best way for you to establish your business is based on your region and where you are from. And the last thing on our checklist is some kind of calendar or system for appointments so that you are organized and you have a way to keep track of all the gigs that you are going to book as a face painter. I would say about 99% of my gigs and inquiries for face painting gigs come directly from my Facebook page. If you don't follow me on my Facebook page, please go check me out, Arielpaints. I post all sorts of stuff there, whether it's funny videos or ideas I have, pictures, questions, you name it. But um, I get a lot of business from my Facebook page. Parents go and they see my pictures and me interacting with people, and that's where I get bookings. So, most of my conversations with clients are starting from my Facebook page, in my inbox, in Messenger, from that Ariel Paints page. So here's an example of a recent message I received. They first typed, "Hi, Ariel," and immediately they are going to get a message from me that says, "Thank you for messaging me. If you'd like a quote for a birthday party or event, please provide an event location, a date and time, as well as how many hours you'd like booked or how many kids you expect to attend the event." This immediately prompts another response. Instead of, "Hi, Ariel, I want to book you for a birthday party." And it was such vague information that it then prompted a lot of back and forth with me asking all these questions, and it was taking up too much time. So when I put in that automatic reply with the information I actually need, then I start getting responses like this. So it immediately prompts them to give me more information. And that second message that people send me usually has everything in it that I need to tell them a rate, give them information, and to move forward. This has saved me so much time, and I highly recommend doing it. So in Messenger, I first quote them a rate, establish my availability, and then ask them for an email address. I then go to my email, I type in Ariel Paints contract and form, put in their email address, of course. And then something else I've done to save myself time is I have established a signature with all the necessary information. So that instead of typing it out every single time, I go to my signature that says Ariel's contract form, and I have in the body of the email what I typically want to say to a client who's booking me. I then go ahead and I plop in my contract, and then I can alter the text however I want to suit that particular client. So for this particular client, I don't know them, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove the line where I have in there, "Don't worry about the deposit," and I'm going to put in, "Please pay the deposit of $35 or $45 or whatever it is," and make sure that they get that paid ahead of time because we don't have any friends in common and I haven't worked with them before, so I want the deposit. I also, in this email, make sure that they understand all the different ways they can pay me, and then I also reiterate that I do not need a table and chair set up because I have my craft and go and my director's chair, and it's one of those things that people always set up for me. And then I always try to be friendly. I have in there, don't hesitate to call me, ask me if you have any questions. So at the bottom, I have a hyperlink to the form that I've already told them is coming their way that I want them to fill out. And then I also have the full link that they can copy and paste into their browser just in case they can't figure it out. I have reiterated my information with my signature, of course, my contact number, and my email. And then I have links to all of my different social media sites. I do think it looks better if you hyperlink them and you shorten up those links so they're not big, long links. And then, of course, my contract is attached. So I go ahead and I send that off to the client and I wait for the form to come back. So we will go over the form now. So I have my clients fill out a Google form. I used to do this a little differently with a sheet attached to the very last page of my contract, which when we're in contracts, I'll show you how I did that. It's still a viable way to do it, but I do prefer the Google form for a few reasons. And I'll go over those as we're talking about this. One, I can alter it so I can add digitally all these different questions and headers. You can see that I have customized this with photos and a theme that I like. So the first thing I do is I have this statement asking people to fill this out, reiterating my email address, telling them that until this is filled out, their date is not saved. And then with Google Forms, you're able to add and alter questions whenever you want. So if I think something's not working, I can change it. These questions are all the things I need to know to establish a relationship with this client to actually have a gig. Now you can have paragraphs, multiple choice questions, yes, no, drop downs, whatever you want to do. So I really like that this is such a customizable format. I can also make the responses required, so they cannot send this to me unless they actually fill out the information. So my first question on the form was who they are. I want to know and make sure that I can relay this form back to who it belongs to. Then date and time. This is also important because I want to make sure it aligns with what we originally discussed. If they asked me for a specific date and then they put something different here, I need to talk to them about it. Then, of course, I want to reiterate if it's a theme for a birthday party so I can be prepared, or if it's a type of event that might be offered to the public. And then I need to consider that it's everything we discussed in the original communication is aligning up here. Being indoor, outdoor is really important, especially in the summer months, because if I need to prepare for having a tent or anything else that might be unexpected, I like to know ahead of time. Number of guests is such an important question to ask, because if you are going to a birthday party for an hour and they put 150 guests are coming here, you know that the communication has broken and you need to get back with this client and find out what's going on and reestablish an appropriate time per number of guests that they are saying are going to show up at this event. The next question on my form is the event location. Obviously, you need to know where you're going. So besides having them just say, oh, it's the pavilion in Westside Park, I'm going to alter this based on something that happened to me last weekend when I got lost trying to find a park. And I'm going to put with address, because sometimes people can be really vague about the event location, and you might know that it's at the vet center downtown or whatever it is, but regardless, you want them to tell you the exact location. Make them give you the address so that you're not doing as much guesswork later. So as I was in here filming this, I went ahead and altered that because I've gotten lost so many times and it's so annoying. The next thing that will help you here is if you ask for a contact name and number for the day of the event. It is not always the same person who is booking you, especially for public events. I want a number of someone who's going to be on site the day of the event. I got so lost last year looking for this new business establishment that wasn't on GPS and wasn't anywhere, and I had to call somebody 5 times to get a hold of someone. The person who put their name on this list was out of town and couldn't help me. So I really emphasize, make sure you get the name of someone who's going to be on site the day of your event. Now, since I send my contract now separately than the form to fill out, I do have this section just asking them to reiterate that they have read my contract and familiarized themselves with it. And if they select no, I can go back and say, hey, what's going on? Did you have a chance to read it? Do you have a question? And I can address it before we have a problem at the event. So the very last thing I have them do is I have them sign their name digitally, of course, but I just want them to agree to all the things we've discussed, that they've looked at my contract and they know the intricacies of that. And then the nice thing about Google Forms is that you can add links. You can add a link to your website, to your Facebook page. I have a link to a video of on my YouTube channel so they can go and reiterate and check out my work. So I really, really like Google Forms for all of these reasons. They've made my life a little bit easier, and I highly recommend that you try it. Sending a Google form to a client is really easy. You just hit the send button and you can email it directly from this page, or you can get a link as well. So you can type in an email here and hit send, but I like it to come with my contract, so I opt to do the link. You just hit the little link button and you can copy and paste this link, but I like to hit shorten URL so that it's a little cleaner. And then I go ahead and I copy this into the email that I send to my clients, which you saw in the email portion. So I have this link in my email to my clients, and then I also put a hyperlink so they have many options to get to my form. Once they fill out the form and it comes back, I hit responses and I can see all of my dates coming up for events. This is the summary version, so I can go through and just take a look at all the events I have booked for this month, or I can go individually and I can click through and look at all the responses from my clients. When I get a response, that's when, for me, I am officially booked, unless I'm waiting for a deposit, and then I might need to prompt them to give me the deposit. But this makes it really easy for me to thumb through all of the events I have coming up and go in and make sure that there's no inconsistencies or nothing that I need to address with a client that just doesn't seem right. Now, I have caught a lot of things by using this form, similar to that example where, they want me for an hour-long event and there's 1,000 people coming. No. So this has really helped me keep everything organized and make sure that everyone's expectations are managed. Once an event is confirmed, then all that information from the form goes directly into my calendar. So I put in face painting event, the contact information, address, any notes that I might need to add, and absolutely that phone number for the day of. And then on my calendar, I code all of my face painting events as bright red, so I know I have an event. And then I also put them on our family calendar in the kitchen, so I always know when I have an event coming up. And then my computer calendar syncs with my phone, so I have all the information when I am going out to an event as well. So now let's talk about contracts. It's always great if you can brand them and add your logo or any kind of personalization. My contracts are broken down into different categories. The first category is birthday parties because it's the most common. I charge $150 for 1 hour, $200 for 2 hours. And then if anybody wants me for the third or fourth hour, I drop the rate down to $80. Now within this section, I have the average amount of guests that I can paint per hour. I have a note about being considerate of the time you book and guests that you invite to the party, just to reiterate that I cannot paint 300 kids in 1 hour. I have in there that I ask for a $35 deposit to book the date for your event. I do waive this sometimes, but I have it in there just in case it's somebody I don't know or I feel like I need that for whatever reason. I have a cancellation policy as well. Now, for those of you that are watching that are just getting started, I am not recommending that you charge $150 per hour. What I do recommend is that you find out what the going rate is in your area and then price yourself appropriately. My rate is high in comparison to other painters in my area, but I am well aware of that, and it's a personal choice for me to do an hour-long booking is only worth it to me if I'm getting that $150, and I don't have a problem booking that because I'm a relatively established painter in my area and people know me and I get a lot of repeat business. But just be conscious of what the rate is in your area. You don't want to outprice yourself so that you're too high, and you don't want to undervalue yourself either. So do some research. Okay, so the next pricing structure I have in my contract is for group and hourly rates, including festivals, corporate events where they are hiring me outright. So I charge $100 per hour, but I have a minimum at 3 hours. So you have to book me for the 3 hours. Now, for a lot of corporate events, you can actually get a higher rate, but it's up to you. I could probably raise this to $110, $120 an hour and still book corporate gigs. But for me, since I'm requiring them to do the minimum of 3 hours, I'm pretty comfortable with this and it's worked out for me. I can also paint more faces at a corporate gig. So I say about 15 faces per hour, and I require a higher deposit. So I require a $50 deposit. But besides that, the verbiage is pretty similar to my birthday rates. So you're going to see a lot of repeat verbiage. The only difference is I add a tip jar will be set out for public events unless it's requested not to. So if it's a private like picnic for a company, I don't put a tip jar out. But if someone's hiring me to be at like a marathon or something like that and it's the public and it's open, I will put a tip jar out unless someone asks me not to. And quite frankly, no one's ever asked me not to. The last option I have on my contract for payment structure is a pay per person or pay per face model. And you can see the verbiage is a little different here. I explain that patrons will be paying directly for the services. And then I have the three different structures of designs and payment that will be offered to the public. They do have to have me there for a 4 hour minimum. And I can paint about 15 faces per hour, and then I have a cancellation clause. Now, I just don't do that many pay per face events anymore, but looking at this, I probably would change a few things. I also, if someone wanted to secure my services for this, I would vet the entire event they're asking me to be at. Not only would I check old Facebook groups to see what kind of attendance they had, but I would also talk to them about the marketing and attendance that they'll be having at the event. And that way I would ensure that it's going to be worth my time and that I am not sitting at a booth, not doing anything for 4 hours and that I could actually make money because pay per face and pay per person events can be really, really strenuous, and it's really unfortunate when you don't get any money out of them. It really feels like a waste of time. So I do think they're really, really valuable. At the same time, just be really cautious of what events you're booking in that realm. And I suggest not paying a booth fee. I think there are really, really big festivals where it's worth it, but I personally would be really cautious about what you're paying for to be in an event where you are then charging the public. Before I continue through the body of my contract, I want to talk a little bit about how I established my contract. First of all, I thought about all the frequently asked questions and went back through communication I had with clients, that back and forth, and I tried to answer all of those questions in my contract so that if I never spoke to someone, if they looked at my contract, they would get a really good idea of how I do business and what I require and all of that good stuff. So if you think of it like that, it will help you write a contract. Now, for the breakdown and verbiage and everything, I did have some help here. Someone posted something really similar to a contract like this. And I was able to pull a lot of verbiage and wording from that and really helped me establish this contract. So it was on an old forum years ago. I have no idea who it was. So if it was you or you know who it was, thank you very much, because it really helped me with a format for my contract. And then I went in and I altered the wording and changed it to suit me and my needs. So that is what I'm hoping this will do for you guys. If you want to copy it, fine, copy it. But I've said before, when you copy something, you don't really own it and you won't even know what's in your contract. So make sure you are paying attention to what you're putting in your own contract and that it's what you want to reflect to your clients and not what I reflect to my clients. Okay, so that being said, let's go through the rest of this quickly and get through the contract. After all my price breakdowns, I first have something about my setup. So I have approximate areas for just me coming to a birthday party or an event, and then if we have a larger event that is going to require multiple painters, how much space we need. And then I also have a note about if it's an outdoor event to let me know so that I can bring a tent or have one provided. I have something about breaks so that if I am at a really, really long event, no one will be surprised if I need to use the restroom. And then I have a little verbiage in here about extreme conditions, that I have the right to leave an event if I feel threatened, yada, yada. I have a section on overtime so that if I'm at an event and they invited 50 more people without telling me and I have to stay and get them painted so I don't have little kids crying, that I can say in my contract, it says you're going to pay me X, Y, and Z if I am, if I can stay. So all of these things you want to think about ways to protect yourself if something happens. Most of this stuff has never been needed, but you want to have it in there just in case. So I have my travel setup fee. You want to establish an area that you are willing to travel to at your regular fee, and then where would you go in your state or country or wherever it may be where you would think that's too far? And how much do you want to be paid to go that extra mile, so to speak? My policies section is really a catch-all for all those other things that I would want to say to an event organizer or to a parent. Things like I use FDA approved face paint. If you have any concerns about reaction, please talk to me. How to remove face paint. If your kids have sensitivities, the fact that I won't paint anyone with cold sores or visible, skin issues. Um, the fact that we will use reasonable care, but we're not responsible for damaged clothing. Now, I have in bold here, under no circumstances will artists supervise children, their behavior, their safety, yada, yada. So I'm just ensuring and trying to protect myself from anything that might happen where I could be blamed in any way. I have something about how to remove face paint just in case it's a concern, what happens if face paint gets on clothing, and then just a little verbiage at the very, very end about how the contract doesn't go into effect until payment or deposit is received and all of that good stuff. So that's really it. That's my contract. It's hopefully one of those things that you're never going to have to refer back to, but the whole idea here is that you are protecting yourself and you're establishing an agreement with someone just in case anything were to happen in the future. So hopefully you will never need to refer back to your contract, but in case you do, you have it. I also think having a contract just makes you look more professional and like you have an established business. So I personally like having a contract. Before I started using Google Forms, I just had the last page of my contract be this form that you could fill out. Now, some people figured out how to do it digitally, which you absolutely can do in Adobe, but other people had some trouble with that. So I found people would print it out often and then mail it to me, and there was a lag, or people couldn't fill it out, so I started telling people they could respond to me via email, which wasn't as easy for me to keep track of. So you can absolutely add a piece like this as just the very, very last page of your contract to have people answer the questions you need them to answer. But for me, this started to get kind of sloppy, and I really, really preferred doing the Google Forms instead. But this is absolutely an option for you guys if you would like to do that instead. Okay guys, so that's it. That's the contract video. I hope you guys liked this. It was a lot of information and it took me a really long time to make this video, so I really, really hope you like it. Please like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down below. Please comment with your tips and tricks too, because I'm always constantly trying to evolve my methods and make my life easier and make my clients' experience easier as well. So if you have any tips, I would love to hear them. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video.